Yeah, audio, video is all done. Good. We're good. We're rolling. Okay, listen. Yesterday when I left off, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. Okay? So one that's kind of interesting, guys, Lily, you're blocking. One of the interesting things, when you look at that map back there of Russia, of the Soviet Union, that pink blob back there, the huge pink blob in the corner. Okay, so what the Soviet Union used to encompass all of this: Georgia, Azerbaijan, down to here, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan. Okay, so all these stands were part of the Soviet Union. They invaded this stand, Afghanistan, in 1979. I told you this yesterday. They flew into Kabul airport on civilian aircraft, took over the airport, and then flew in their helicopters and aircraft and troops. Okay? For 10 years, the Soviet Union fought in Afghanistan and did not win. We did it for 20 years. Now, they were neighboring Afghanistan. They butted up against Afghanistan. We're doing this from the other side of the planet. Okay? Learn from history. Now, I'm not saying that George Bush in 2001 after 9/11 shouldn't have gone into Afghanistan. I'm not saying that at all. But you got to have a goal. You got to have a mission. And you do everything to fulfill that mission, and then you go home. Unless your mission is to take over that country. You follow me? And that mission was unclear. It was blurry. And we didn't achieve it. And then we left with our tail between our legs. You understand? What could we have learned from what event earlier in history could we have learned on here? At least two that I can think of: when the Russians tried to do it, and then when we tried to do this in Vietnam. And what happened to the people when we fled Vietnam? The people succumbed to the communists. Now the people of Afghanistan are succumbing to the Taliban. Learn from history. Okay? Now, this is pretty interesting. So the Russians get in here, and we are going to arm those fighters that come from all over the Middle East. Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Syria, Turkey. They all come here to fight against the Russians. And we are going to help them because we have a shared enemy. And as I was saying yesterday, that group of people became known as the Mujahideen. Okay, here's a good picture of some of the Mujahideen in 1989. The Soviets pulled out in 1989. They were victorious. We helped them. We gave them weapons. The Russians were using helicopters, so we gave them Stinger missiles to shoot down Russian helicopters, like this. Okay? They still had some left over when we got there. All right? Now, taught you about this guy. The father, Mohammed bin Laden. The son, radicalized. Goes from Yemen, Sudan, to Afghanistan. Now, after the Soviets left, the group that kind of took over Afghanistan, and nobody's actually taken over the whole country, ever. It's a very tribal nation. It's incredibly rugged country. And these people have people have tried to take over Afghanistan for centuries and failed. And so the Taliban ruled Kabul, much of the southern part of Afghanistan, but the Northern Alliance was a group that hated the Taliban. And so when we went there in 2001, we were able to rely on that group. Okay? But this guy, bin Laden, was in Afghanistan in the 1980s fighting against the Russians. His group was called Al-Qaeda. They were part of the Mujahideen. A small part of it, but that's what Al-Qaeda means. In English translation is the camp. So bin Laden's camp is Al-Qaeda. All right? And bin Laden liked to say that, hey, we were the biggest reason why the Soviets were defeated. Al-Qaeda, his camp, okay, which is not true, by the way, but he liked to claim that. All right, now he had lots of money that he could buy things with and so forth. So in essence, because we were helping the Mujahideen, we were helping this guy. Okay? And he didn't hate the United States at this point. Now, the number 2 of Al Qaeda is this guy, Ayman al-Zawahiri. He's Egyptian and is actually a medical surgeon. He is one of the founders of a group known as the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. Okay, now this is going to be important later on. Okay, so I've introduced you to some history here, 1979 to 89 in Afghanistan. And then we go to Iraq in 1990 to stop this guy, Saddam Hussein, when he invaded his tiny neighbor, Kuwait. We did that yesterday, yes? So when we go there, well, when this invasion takes place, George Bush says, we're not going to let this happen. We're not going to stand for this, builds a huge coalition. While that is going on, the planning for this is going on. The Saudi government, as I showed you guys before, the Saudi government is shaking in their shoes. Because if nobody does anything about Saddam, the next target is Saudi Arabia, right? So you have Kuwait here, 5th largest army in the world. Saudi Arabia could be next. Okay? Now, bin Laden, who is from Saudi Arabia, goes to the king of Saudi Arabia and says, look, the Mujahideen will help you defeat Saddam Hussein. Don't use the Americans. Don't use the infidels. Use the Mujahideen. We defeated the Soviet Union in Afghanistan. We can defeat Saddam Hussein of Iraq. And the king chooses us over them. Because they've already kicked bin Laden out. They don't like it. You know what I mean? Yeah, everybody follow me where I'm at right now? Yeah. Okay. So they choose us. Now, guys, the U.S. Army in 1990 looks different than it did in 1945. Now we have a lot of women in the military. Women that are not covered properly for Saudi Arabia. So we have American female soldiers that are going to be landing here in Saudi Arabia on holy ground, infidels. Okay? This is where we become the enemy of Al Qaeda and radical Islam when we put our troops here. Okay? And as I said, the war itself will only last 100 hours. Now the goal, because this went through the United Nations, the goal was to remove Saddam from Kuwait, not to take over Iraq. So we did our job. That was the mission, to get him out. We got him out, and that was it. Now, what the United Nations did over the next 11 years was put restrictions on Iraq. Saddam was still in power. Saddam Hussein is still in power. And they said, okay, listen, Saddam, you can sell your oil, but you can only sell it for exchange of food. You can't get money for it. We'll sell you, people will trade you food for oil. Okay? We created a no-fly zone here that we patrol, that the Iraqi military could not fly in. Okay? Actually, they could fly in here north or south of there. They couldn't because of their neighbors. Okay? Well, guys, we find out 7, 8 years into this that Saddam has been violating most of these UN resolutions against them. In fact, the French are straight up buying oil from Iraq. Thanks, French, for enforcing these, these restrictions on this frickin' dictator. Okay, appreciate that. Good ally, French. Good job. But they wanted cheap oil, and they got it. Okay? So over time, Saddam's violating all these rules we put on him. Now remember, Saddam was our ally in the 1980s because there was a war between these two countries. Why was Iran an enemy? Well, let's go back to the slideshow for a second, because I got to go back to 1979 again. And talk about this. So while the Soviet Union was invading Afghanistan, the leader of Iran, who was our friend, we helped put him in power, CIA, the Shah of Iran. He's a military dictator like Saddam Hussein. He's not a religious dictator. He's a military dictator. Okay? This is important. He's our friend. He gets cancer. And he's not a good guy. Okay? Let's not fool ourselves here. Dictators, even though they may be our friend, generally are not good people. Okay? Let's not kid ourselves. But what he did in Iran was kept the radicals in his own country under control. Like Saddam did. Guess what? There's Christians living in Iran as well. Not easy to be a Christian in Iran. But the Shah protected them because Christians just wanted to live their lives and worship Jesus Christ. They didn't want to start up problems. Okay? So when the Shah gets sick, comes to the United States for health care, this guy, the Ayatollah Khomeini, leads what's called the Islamic Revolution in Iran in 1979. Okay? Thank you. Now, this is the picture of the U.S. Embassy in 1979 in the capital of Iran called Tehran. It's in the north central. Okay? They're storming our embassy. Now, who is in the U.S. Embassy? The ambassador, his family, and diplomats. Are these military personnel in the embassy? No, these are civilians. And they are going to take these civilians hostage. This is an act of war against the United States. Our president at the time is this man, Jimmy Carter, who was shocked by the invasion of Afghanistan, as most people were. And then this happens. They handcuff, blindfold these Americans, parade them in front of cameras, and refuse to return them to us unless we give them the Shah back. Now, guys, we don't negotiate with terrorists. And this is a terrorist. So Carter refuses to give them up, and eventually the Shah dies anyways from his cancer. Okay? These hostages will be held for more than a year. One rescue attempt was made, and it was a disaster. Delta Force was sent in with helicopters, and there was a dust storm, a haboob. The helicopters crashed into each other. The rescue failed. Carter looked weak. We looked weak. Okay, now, I got to mention a movie here. Argo. How many guys have seen Argo? Okay, this is a fantastic movie, okay? So, when the U.S. Embassy is being overrun, Johnson, check this out. 6 Americans are in the back of the embassy, and they see all these protests outside the embassy, and then they start coming over the fences, through the fences, and so forth. And they're like burning documents, shredding documents, because it's over. And so 6 of them escaped out the back door and made it to the Canadian ambassador's house. He let them in. Now, because they were shredding all the personnel documents, once they gathered all the hostages, they didn't know they were missing any until they had children piece together the strips of paper that were shredded. And they realized there were 6 people missing. The CIA was tipped off by the Canadian ambassador that there were 6 people living in his house. Now, the Canadian ambassador is putting his life at risk by doing this. You understand? But he does it anyway. Him and his wife. And so the CIA concocts this crazy plan to get them out. Now, guys, this was not made public for like 30 years after the fact. Nobody knew. But yeah, they created a movie. And they sent the CIA agent posing as a movie producer to go to Iran and do research for a film that would take place in the desert. And they wanted to use some of the monuments and stuff in Iran for the backdrop. He has with him fake passports of, like a photographer person, a screenwriter, and stuff like this. And they've come up with these fake identities for these 6 people. He makes it to the ambassador's house, trains all these diplomats that they are now part of the movie industry, and he sneaks them out of the country. Okay? We gave all the credit to the Canadians, that the Canadians pulled this off and helped save these 6 Americans. Okay? That's what everybody thought for 30 years. And then they declassified the operation and made a movie about it called Argo. Ben Affleck's the CIA agent in the movie. It's fantastic, guys. Okay? All right? All right. So anyhow, the other hostages, they're going to have to wait. Now, I'll tell you the end of the story on that right now. The day Ronald Reagan takes the oath of office as an inaugurated, the Iranians fly the hostages to Germany. They let them out. Because Reagan told the Iranians, if you don't give them back, we're going to hit you. And we're going to hit you hard. He stood up to him. Okay? Now, moral of the story, don't mess with Ronald Reagan. Okay? There'll be more of those. All right? Now, all right. So how do we transition here? Okay? You got the Gulf War. Okay? 1990, this is over. We become the enemy. So what begins to happen, guys, is Al-Qaeda starts to build terrorist training camps in Afghanistan. And they start making plans of attacks against the United States. Now, Al-Qaeda is not limited to Afghanistan. They have branches in other countries. So what I'm going to show you next is a list of terrorist attacks against the United States. Maybe. Where is this? Where is this? Where is this? List. I got to go to War and Peace. Okay, guys, I got to do a quick search. Sorry. I teach 5 hours in a row. Sometimes I just don't have time to prep everything. List. List, World War II films. List, terrorist attacks list. Okay. Okay, this list culminates here, right? This is the end. All right, 2001, September 11th. So let's go back. Yeah, it is. Okay, now, some of this is radical Islam. Some of it is domestic terrorism. Some of it is unrelated to what we've been talking about, but deals with radical Islam. Okay, one of the reasons why many in the Middle East dislike the United States is because our support of Israel. Israel was created as a nation state in 1948 after World War II. Remember the Holocaust. So Jews who had been murdered by the millions in Europe are offered a place to come home. Now, the British controlled that area. And they're going to leave just like they're going to leave India after World War II. And they offer the Palestinians there and the Jews there an opportunity to share that land together and have their own country. The Palestinians reject that offer. The Jews accept that offer. So the Jews have their own state called Israel. So Jews from all over the world begin to move to the homeland. Okay, that pisses off Muslims, especially because of Jerusalem. Jerusalem is a capital of 3 religions: Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Okay, that being under the control of the Jews really irks the Muslims. Okay, so because we support the state of Israel, That makes us a partial enemy to them. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, so this is the U.S. Embassy in Beirut. Suicide car bomb against the U.S. Embassy in Beirut kills 63, including 17 Americans. Okay. We have an embassy there. That's the capital of Lebanon. Okay. October 83, a suicide car bomb attack against U.S. Marine barracks in Beirut. Whoa, hold up. Why is there a U.S. Marine barracks in Beirut, Lebanon? Because there's a civil war going on there. You guys know the Stephen family? And Mrs. Dugan, our librarian? Okay? These folks are Lebanese Christians. And there are a lot of Christians in Lebanon. And there's a lot of Muslims. And there's a civil war going on there in the 80s. They attack the U.S. Embassy. Ronald Reagan sends troops in there to try and stop the civil war. To stop the Jews and Muslims, the Muslims and Christians from killing each other. And then they attack us. This is one of the worst attacks on the United States in our history. It's an ugly, freaking ugly scene. You guys remember what the building, the Murrah building in Oklahoma City looked like after the bombing there? Just like that whole big building, the whole side of it wiped out. That's what it looked like here. And it was American Marines. It was at 241. And then a simultaneous attack at a French base kills 58 Frenchmen. You know what our response is? We leave. We get out. They learn something. Kill Americans over here. They'll leave. Watch the trend, okay? Now, some of this doesn't relate. This is drug trade, Bogota, okay? Bomb explodes at a restaurant and air base in Madrid, Spain, killing 18, all Spaniards, 15 Americans wounded. El Salvador, again, dealing with drug trade. TW airline hijacked over the Mediterranean, hostage crisis, 39 passengers eventually released. These are radical Muslims. August 85, car bomb at a U.S. military base in Frankfurt, Germany, kills 2 and injures 20. U.S. soldiers murdered for his identity papers found the day after explosion. Palestinian terrorist hijacked cruise liner Achille Lauro in response to Israeli attack on Palestinian Liberation Organization headquarters in Tunisia. Leon Klinghoffer, an elderly wheelchair-bound American, is killed and thrown overboard the ship. Hijackers aboard Egyptian air flight killed 1 American. Egyptian commanders stormed the aircraft on the Isle of Malta. 60 people killed. Now listen, hijacked aircraft. We're going to see a lot of that. Now, usually with the hijacked aircraft, what the hijackers were looking for was a trade of some sort. We're going to hold these people hostage until you release our friends from prison. You release our people, we release your hostages. So pilots and crew were taught, if your plane is hijacked, get it on the ground, and we will resolve that matter once you're on the ground. If this is taking place in the air, we've got problems. Get it on the ground. So comply with the hijackers. This is awful. Simultaneous suicide attacks carried out against U.S. and Israeli check-in desks in Rome and Vienna international airports. 20 people killed in the 2 attacks, including 4 terrorists. All right, 86. This is a disco, like a dance club in West Berlin, targeting Americans. 86, TWA's Trans World Airlines. It's an old, like Delta, American Airlines, TWA, Pan Am. These are other carriers. Flight as it prepares to land in Athens, Greece. 4 people killed when they're sucked out of the aircraft. All right. This is a big one, guys, okay? So this is an important one for history. December 21st, 1988, a bomb destroys Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland, killing all 259 aboard, 747, including 189 Americans, 11 people on the ground. This attack, they traced the explosives back to Libya. Okay? The dictator of Libya at the time is a guy named Muammar Gaddafi. Remember that name, Gaddafi. Okay, he's a thug. He's a military dictator, like the others. Okay, we trace this back. Ronald Reagan goes on national television right after we had just used F-16s to blow up his house, Gaddafi's house. He was not there, but it was thought at the time that his youngest daughter was there and that Reagan killed her. They used that as propaganda against Reagan. We find out many years later, after the death of Gaddafi, that his youngest daughter is alive and well. Okay, but he blew up his house in response to this. Okay, now Gaddafi's a thug. We got to remember this guy. Okay, now the report also linked bin Laden to the Yemen hotel attack in '95 in Riyadh, U.S. training mission, Saudi National Guard. The report also linked bin Laden to the 1992 Yemen hotel attack and '95 bombing of Riyadh. Okay, now this is important because bin Laden is Al Qaeda. And then in 1993, right here, we get the situation in Somalia. Have any of you guys ever seen the movie Black Hawk Down? Yeah.
That's okay.
They were behind it.
Oh.
We didn't know it at the time. It's Al-Shabaab, which is an offshoot of Al-Qaeda. Okay, now let me tell you about Somalia, guys. Now, I'm sorry, this is rude, but we used to make jokes. There was a famine in Somalia. It's the Horn of Africa here, okay? There was a famine. So, like, if somebody was really skinny, say, what, are you from Somalia or what? I know that's me. Okay, there was a famine there. So, President Clinton, no. President this was Herbert Walker Bush, Bush 41, as a humanitarian mission only, sent troops in the coast of Somalia to bring food in for the people that were starving in Somalia. Now, this country there's no government. It's run by warlords at the time. So whoever had the biggest guns and the most guns controlled the food. Okay, so it's a war zone, the whole country. The capital is called Mogadishu. What our troops refer to as the Mo. So Bush leaves office, Clinton comes into office. Now, these warlords are bad dudes. And Clinton gets some information that we know where one of these warlords is. So the mission is going to change from a humanitarian mission to a military mission. This, guys, is called mission creep. You change the mission in the middle of the mission. And we were not prepared for it. They sent Humvees into the city of Mogadishu, middle of the day. Now, guys, people are all hopped up on poppy. They're smoking the stuff. There's an AK-47 on every street corner. Our troops go in there, find this guy. And while they go in there, they're covered by helicopters from the air. One of them gets shot down. So the guys that are trying to capture this warlord got to divert to the helicopter that's down. And then another helicopter gets shot down. These guys are stuck in the city overnight with the whole freaking town closing in on them. It's a freaking disaster. They made a movie out of it called Black Hawk Down, and it's one of the best movies I've ever seen. Okay? Seriously intense. Okay? You should watch that movie. All right? 18 Americans. Is that what it says? 18 Americans. They will strip them naked.
Second paragraph.
Sorry. Yeah, 18 Marines. Guys, they will strip some of them of their clothes and drag them through the streets. This will be shown on CNN. This is horrifying. And we didn't know it at the time, but it was bin Laden was behind it. Okay? What did we do? We left. Not saying we should have stayed. I'm just telling you what we did. February 1993. Oh, look at this. A bomb and a van explodes underground in the parking lot in New York's World Trade Center, killing 6 people, wounding over 1,000. Guys, this 9/11 was not the first time the World Trade Center was attacked. We caught the mastermind of this. They called him the Blind Sheikh. He still sits in a prison in New York today. They tried to bring down the towers in 1993. These attacks keep happening. 95, a car bomb destroys the Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. This one is domestic. That's that son of a bitch, Timothy McVeigh. Okay? April 19th, 1995. That date coincides with what? April 19th. The shot heard round world, the sound of the revolution. The battles of Lexington and Concord. 2 years earlier, on April 19th, outside of Waco, Texas, there was a cult, religious cult known as the Branch Davidians. Their leader was a guy named David Koresh. Anyone? You know what I'm talking about? Okay, David Koresh was stockpiling weapons. He had a religious cult. Is that legal in this country? Absolutely, you can start a cult. It's not against the law. As long as you're not harming somebody. You guys know this. I taught you that in government. Okay? You can start your own cult. There's nothing illegal about it. Is it illegal to own weapons in Texas? Certain kind of weapons? Without a proper license? Yes. Is it illegal to have more than one weapon? No. He was stockpiling weapons. The FBI wanted to talk to David Koresh. And he said, I've broken no laws. Do not come out to my compound. The FBI shows up and they're like, dude, if you come onto our compound, you're going to have a fight on your hands. So there's a standoff. In 1993, a standoff. CNN is the only cable news network. So it's standoff, day 3, Branch Davidian compound. And the CNN's got their cameras there and they're zooming. It's a mile out. You got all the FBI, the ATF, they're all out there. Standoff, Branch Davidian compound, day 16, day 25, day 55. And then on April 19th, 1993, the Attorney General, Janet Reno, says, we're going in. They use a tank. They use military helicopters. They assault the Branch Davidian compound. A fight breaks out. A fire breaks out. Innocent people burned to death. What were they going after? Guns. What were they going after in Lexington and Concord? What was the date? Janet Reno. Can we pick April 18th? Or April 20th? I mean, the optics here are awful. So this nut job, Timothy McVeigh, is pissed off that the federal government tried to attack these people and kill these people because they had guns. Okay, so he's going to exact revenge for these people by blowing up the federal building in Oklahoma City, killing a bunch of innocent people, including kids in a daycare center on the first freaking floor. He's no longer with us. Okay, I'm not excusing the guy. I'm just saying, come on. Know your history, Janet Reno. Okay. 1995. Car bomb, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, kills 7, 5 of them American military and civilian. Why do we have military advisors? Why are we there? Okay, we're there. Okay, they kill us. Then there's another one in Saudi Arabia. Air Force installation in Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, 96, 19 U.S. military killed. Kobor Towers housing facility, 510 are wounded, including 240 Americans. Guys, they made a movie about this one. It's called The Kingdom with Jamie Foxx. You know the black actor Jamie Foxx? This movie, one of the best movies I've seen in the last 20 years. It's freaking intense. Dude, The Kingdom. Check it out, man. Now, it's loosely based on these events. Okay? What they do, guys, they do a car bomb and then they let all of the people, the first responders, come in, and in one of the ambulances that comes in is a larger bomb. These people are sick. What do we do? Get out of there. All right, then we got domestic terrorism again. You guys know the Richard Jewell story, Atlanta Olympics? You guys ever seen that movie? Clint Eastwood did it. He's a security guard. You saw it? He's a security guard at the Olympics. There's a backpack left sitting underneath a bench. And he's like, that doesn't look right. That shouldn't be there. He opens it. There's a bomb, a pipe bomb in there. It goes off, but he had cleared people away from it. There were a few injuries. What? Killed one person, 111 wounded. The FBI, they do all this profiling stuff. The profile.
They say it was his fault.
They thought it was him because he's kind of the slow guy that lives with his mom. Yeah. He's a little bit off. Well, one of the FBI agents leaked it to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the newspaper there, and the newspaper published his picture saying this is the person of interest for the FBI. It totally destroyed his life and his mother's life. He did not do it. He was a hero. He saved hundreds of lives by moving people away from it. Eventually, they caught the real guy that did it. But they ruined this guy. So Clint Eastwood felt bad for him and made a movie about it. Pretty good. I forget the name of the movie. But you could just say, look up Richard Jewell movie. Okay? It's not as good as The Kingdom or Black Hawk Down. Okay? It's so good. Okay, now, where we got here? Rocket propelled grenades, U.S. Embassy, and a Beirut again. Okay? Okay, this is pretty big. This is in Africa. Okay? Tanzania and Nairobi. Okay? They attacked the U.S. embassies there. Okay? You can see how many people were killed here and so forth. This is all on canvas, by the way. So our response, this is Bill Clinton's response, okay? We thought that they were making chemical weapons here in Khartoum, this factory. And so we blew it up. Then we found out later it was an aspirin factory. Good intelligence. Okay. We did lob some missiles into, I think we did, into Afghanistan. I don't know if we did that here or not. Okay, this one here. Actually, I had an interview last semester with somebody who was here in Yemen when this happened. A terrorist bomb damages USS Cole destroyer in Yemen, which is on the bottom of the peninsula where Saudi Arabia is, killing 17 sailors. Blew a hole in the size of the Cole, the size of this room. Okay, there was one of those little rubber dinghy boats, with a motor on it. Drove right up to the Cole and blew up. Okay, that was Al Qaeda. So what was happening here, guys, was these attacks were happening at Americans overseas. While this was happening, bin Laden was planning for this attack on the United States, on our soil. Okay, and so they sent in terrorists into our country. All of them were here legally. They all had visas. 17 of the 18 were from Saudi Arabia, which is an ally of the United States. They put them in different cells around the country. They did not tell them what their mission was. You don't tell them what your mission is until they need to know. You train them for the things they need to know. So some were sent to flight schools to learn how to fly planes. One guy shows up at a Florida flight school, tells the instructors, I don't really want to learn how to take off an airplane or land an airplane. I just want to learn how to fly one when it's in the air. An Arab guy does this today. Well, that's going to send off some alarm bells. Yes, that would be profiling. And you better do something about it. So they are funded by Al Qaeda. They are trained by Al Qaeda. And then on September 11th, which is an important date in Islamic history, September 11th is, of a major battle, yes?
Yeah, no, that's it.
Vienna? Okay, yeah. Okay. Something. It was a major date. So every September 11th that rolls around, guys, we have to be on high alert. In fact, Benghazi, and I don't know if you guys remember hearing about Benghazi, which I will be talking about tomorrow, happened on September 11th, because we're not done. We got to September 11th today. Okay. President Bush has the CIA in country in Afghanistan shortly afterwards, coordinating with the Northern Alliance that dislikes the Taliban. Okay. So there's a good movie out there called 12 Strong that's recently come out about the first American soldiers in Afghanistan after 9/11. Okay. It's a really good story. And I had an interview last semester actually with a student who was one of the troops. It was one of the first big units to go into Afghanistan. And he talked about working with the Northern Alliance. And the leader of the Northern Alliance was a great man who stood up to tyranny. And it's really sad because this guy really helped us out. And he started to gain some fame. And so there was a TV crew that wanted to interview him a few months after the Americans started arriving in Afghanistan. And the film crew that came in to interview him, they go into a tent. Well, in the camera is a bomb. And they kill this guy. Okay, and some Americans. Okay. Which is an awful story. There was a movie I saw once. I cannot find that movie to save my life. It was really good about this guy. But you could Google search leader of the Northern Alliance. He's a pretty fantastic guy. That really helped the Americans out. Okay. So without the Northern Alliance, we would not have had the successes that we did have in Afghanistan. Okay. Obviously, we're looking for bin Laden. We're trying to take out Al Qaeda if we get to Afghanistan. Okay. Which will take a long time. Okay. We will finally track down bin Laden. Yes? Where?
Was that DC in the
Mm-hmm. He's in Pakistan. Yeah, he's just north of Islamabad, the capital. Hiding in a house. Yeah, it had walls around it, which a lot of places do. And yeah, I mean, you got to think the Pakistani intelligence knew he was there. Pakistan's our ally. Okay, are they? Yeah. Saudi Arabia. Yeah, but listen, the story of how we catch him is fantastic. I mean, it's a CIA agent, female CIA agent, actually, that notices this guy that keeps kind of reappearing, and he's the courier. They find out he's the courier because bin Laden puts out these videos. So you watch a video, try to figure out where he's taking this video. They can't send it out via satellite, and we'll catch him. We have the courier. So I'll talk about that and maybe finish up this tomorrow.
Hi.
So I think the idea is if they do something before that date, like September 11th.
Oh, okay.